Good morning, friends. Welcome to Yoga Homework Video 2. The invitation will be to begin supine, resting on our backs if you like. I have a couple of blocks nearby. Be creative with what you might have at home. I have a blanket just in case, and actually I'm going to roll that up now and give my neck a little cushion as I move into this position. And of course, anything you'd like underneath you, a yoga mat or sometimes a towel or a blanket works just fine. And you can come on down however it suits you as you're comfortable. And just that little bit of roll under my neck feels pretty good. And maybe you'll find your hands resting somewhere nearby or even on your belly as we take a moment to settle into this position and give ourselves anything that we may need to be more comfortable here. So for me, I often find it helpful to press my back down, even that space, or in particular, the space underneath, what feels like underneath my navel center, my belly button, the umbilical center, however you might refer to it. And then when I do that, I'm more active in my front body, and my back feels a little better knowing that I've got it. And as you're ready, your legs may come long, and you may want to bend one knee and find a supine tree, and then fish around for your props and see if you'd like to place a block underneath. And remember, your blocks have 1, 2, 3 different levels, or maybe you prefer something softer like a pillow or a blanket. Again, be creative. And as we begin our practice this morning, perhaps you'll find your breathing. And sometimes we have a soft gaze over the tip of our nose. And sometimes we close our eyes, even turning inward. If that feels comfortable for you, sometimes it doesn't, and that is just fine. I'm feeling that one of my ankles wants to do some circling, and my foot wants to do some flexing and pointing. You're welcome to stay here on this side in your supine tree, or perhaps you're feeling ready to switch sides. And you can bring that same prop on over to the other side, or maybe you have something else waiting for you on the other side, or maybe that knee just wants to be on its own. So really, truly, both options, all options are fine here. And your foot can land wherever it lands. Sometimes it's right near the knee, next to the knee. Sometimes it's above. Sometimes it's below. I'll see if maybe this foot wants to do a little waking up as well. Some circling, some flexing, some pointing, circling in the other direction. Supine tree, Vrikshasana. Noticing where your hands, your arms may want to rest. As the invitation continues to be finding our breathing. And when you feel complete in your tree, we will see about moving on to a bridge pose. So both knees may bend. You may want to keep your prop under your neck or move it. Your arms may come alongside you. And again, for me, it feels really good to press down into what I'll call my low back area. And then as I'm pressing down, I'm also beginning to lift up and find my breathing. You're welcome to do this with a pillow or a block underneath your seat if that feels better for you. I'll slide my block underneath. It's like I'm making a little shelf there for my hips, and then you may like to stay right here, or maybe you'll lift one foot up, maybe you'll point through the toes. Excuse me, maybe you'll find some circles in one direction or the other. I'm noticing that my calves are feeling tight, so these movements with my feet feel welcoming right now to releasing as I extend. And then coming down and switching sides, maybe pointing through toes, maybe pressing through heel, perhaps finding circles. One direction, the other if you like. And of course you can do this without the prop underneath you, and that's a matter of preference and your comfort, and it may change from time to time. It may change with the phases of the moon. I'm going to press into my palms and feet again and lift my hips and activate a bit through that lower body area. And then moving my prop and coming on down to the mat. We'll practice one more supine pose before we move on. For this one, I think I'll move my blanket and see how it feels. So the invitation is to reach your arms overhead and perhaps begin to slide your feet to one side of the mat, and maybe your hands will slide to that side as well, obviously, perhaps top and bottom. And maybe you feel like you have a longer leg and the shorter leg may like to cross over top. And maybe you feel like you have a longer arm now that we've turned into a bit of a crescent moon, or some of us like to call it banana asana. And maybe that longer arm hand will take hold of your wrist, or maybe not. Maybe you're happy to keep the feet and the hands apart. Finding what works for you. Exploring what works for you. And sometimes we just don't know what works for us, so we move in our phases, through our phases. New moon having just arrived. Some say a very good time for quieting, for turning inward, finding our breathing to support that if possible. And if you like, we'll move to the other side. So coming center when you feel complete, and the feet may slide or take a little walk to the other side, and the hands may slide or take a little walk to the other side. And again, you may find one foot feeling a little shorter and crossing over that ankle, and you may feel one arm feeling a little longer and giving that wrist a little encouragement to turn into a crescent moon if you wish. Perhaps there'll be that beautiful sliver in the sky this evening. Sometimes we're lucky and we see it in the early morning sky. Breathing here, finding your breathing. And now I'm questioning if my ankles feel comfortable, so I'm going to switch them and see. That's interesting. I think I feel more of a release the other way, but when I switch it, that's comfortable as well. Giving ourselves freedom, if possible, in the posture to notice, to explore to begin to give ourselves what we need in the many phases of our life and the many phases of our moon. So the next part, we're going to see about coming into a side-lying Shavasana. Often we save, or we've been taught to save Shavasana for the end, but a little side-lying motion, whichever side you prefer, can be a welcome change at times, remembering to give ourselves moments of being. So often we feel like human doings, it seems, remembering we are human beings. Finding your breathing. And when you feel complete, we'll come up. Well, you have some options here, and you may like your blanket underneath anything that feels it would like some cushion. We'll come up to create some side leg lifts, and you might have your forearm down, or you might rest your head in your hand, or you might keep your head resting in that side lying Shavasana place. And your bottom knee may stay bent or come long, and your top foot may step over the long leg, or it may like to be behind, and you might feel a difference. So give yourself a moment and see if perhaps you can be present to sensations without judgment. And so it seems in some instances it would make more sense for that bottom leg to come long now. And once you have balance, maybe you'll lift and lower that bottom leg, finding your breathing. And maybe you'd like to come down a moment and find your side-lying Shavasana again, or perhaps you'll move into what we call clamshells. So your knees and feet are pretty much together, remembering you can support your head as you wish. And the top knee, now that both legs are bent, the top knee lifts and lowers. And it seems for many of us, activating the medial glute, medial in the middle, right, is can be a little trickier. So this is a nice exercise to activate that area. Encouraging ourselves to be present to the sensations without judgment. And when you feel complete, you're welcome to take a moment as you wish, and we'll move to the other side. So you can simply roll over how it works for you. I'm going to do a little swivel so I can continue to see you. And we'll begin again, if you'd like, in a side-lying Shavasana. So maybe you find the other side. And when you're ready, the bottom leg may stay bent at first while we search for our balance and welcome balance. The front top foot may move to the front, or the top foot may move to the back, and eventually you might feel just right lengthening that bottom leg. And of course you can support your head the way you wish, lifting and lowering the bottom leg as you're ready. Being present, if possible, to the sensations without judgment. And when you feel complete, perhaps you'll move to a bit of that resting place. And maybe you'd like to set up for the clamshells again, remembering you can prop your head the way it suits you. The top knee lifting, the knees and feet are pretty much together now if possible, and then lowering. Noticing, exploring, without judging. And when you feel complete, taking a moment or two before we transition to the next bit as you're ready, and always as you're ready. No hurries, no worries, no rushing. I'm going to find my blocks just in case they become helpful, and I'm going to find my blanket so that my knees are a little happier. And we'll move into, when you're ready, poses that involve more kneeling. So please do invite yourself to make any adjustments, shifts, or changes throughout your practice that make sense for you. And sometimes I need to watch first when I'm learning. Sometimes I need to do along with. Sometimes I need to take a break and come back in. So from your hands and knees pose, one foot will come forward. You might find blocks to help you. You might bring one hand up at a time. And you know, we're nearing stand-up paddleboard season. So this is a kneeling warrior 2. If you'd like, your back foot could go a little off to the side and 2 arms could reach out. And that way we feel a bit more balanced. See how it works for you. Maybe notice where your palms want to be. Maybe notice where your front foot wants to be. Maybe notice where your back foot wants to be. Finding your soft gaze, your drishti. And as you come forward, maybe you'll find those blocks again, and perhaps from a knee down lunge or a low lunge with the knee up, you'll lift one arm. I have the arm up that matches the leg in the back, and that arm could reach back, could reach up if it suits you, forward. Maybe you'll make some circles, noticing where your gaze feels just right, adjusting, shifting, changing. Maybe the circles will change. Maybe your back knee wants to come down throughout the practice, so it becomes your own. And then we'll take it to table pose and see what happens on the other side. When you're ready, the other foot might like to come forward. The back foot might find that place off to the side. Maybe your arms open up. Maybe you find what works for your balance, your gaze. Maybe you're adjusting so your shoulders and your neck can breathe into the pose. Exploratory. What do we find when we're on the river? Paddle yoga is quiet. So often, even here in little old New Jersey, we're treated to an owl's presence or the great blue heron's presence. Some mama ducks and their babies, an eagle or two. the fish, the tadpoles, the frogs. And from your kneeling warrior two, let's find that low lunge again. So again, maybe the back knee down, maybe you're lifting up, maybe the other arm up. So I have the arm that matches my long leg in the back out to the side. It could reach up to the sky. Maybe it will reach forward. Maybe you'll make some circles. Perhaps you'd like to reverse the circles. Coming on down when you feel complete. Returning to table pose. Finding a place for your hands or your arms to hold you steady. Any adjustments, shifts, or changes throughout the practice that you need are always welcome. Maybe your hips will start to move a little side to side, and you'll gaze toward one hip, or maybe it's just your hips that want to move, and your head will stay centered. Those of us who have experience with boxer dog fur family friends know that this feels like perhaps a slow motion greeting that they do. They turn into a little half circle when they're excited to greet us and love us. Making adjustments, shifts, changes the way it suits you. Maybe you'd like to find a little more space and even find some more circular motion. Typically, I do really well to activate my center space here, my core, my front body. And once again, when I do so, my very own back knows that I've got it. Maybe you'd like to reverse your circles. And as you come center, maybe you'll do just a little more forward and backward movement. And sometimes we take rest. You're welcome to return to that side lying Shavasana. Some of us prefer the child's pose. Some of us prefer the puppy dog. And as you're ready, we'll transition into a bit of a standing position. So I'm going to move my blanket so I don't trip on it. And if it feels helpful as we transition, can you bring a sense of flow and lightness into your breathing? Do the blocks help? Do you like the idea of keeping your knee down? Then you might want that blanket still. Do you want to lift your knee and press your heel down and come up into what some call a dancing warrior? Your matching arm could rest on your bent knee. Your other arm, sometimes my hand feels good just at my hip or my low back. Your other arm might like to reach like it did in lunge. Maybe even make those circles again. Or maybe not. Maybe as you consider bringing a sense of flow and lightness into your breathing, into your posture, that arm wants to stay in one place. Or perhaps you'll begin to move and find what some call exalted warrior. So now my matching hand is finding its way near my long and strong back leg, and my top hand is reaching over my head a bit. Finding your breathing, inviting flow, inviting lightness. Noticing your feet, if you wish. Noticing your strong legs holding you up. Noticing your breathing. Exploring what works for you. As you feel complete, you might bring that back knee down again, maybe even off to the side. As your arms come around, you might interlace your fingers. Sometimes those fingers face us. Sometimes they press away from us. You might even take a Kali Mudra back there where your four fingers point, your thumbs stack, and your others interlace. See what works for you. And we'll take a humble warrior. Your upper body can bow near your upper leg. Your head might release below your knee if you wish. And of course you can do this with the back leg long. Maybe the heel up, maybe the heel down. See what works for you. Perhaps inviting a sense of flow, a sense of lightness. And when you feel complete, you're welcome to step forward to switch legs. I'm going to move on over to the other side and see what works over here. A lunge, a knee down lunge, finding your balance, finding your breathing. Extended side angle, or if you prefer dancing warrior, maybe this arm finds a place to circle. Perhaps you'd like to reverse the circles. Maybe you'll stay still for a moment, finding your breathing, inviting lightness, and perhaps flow, moving to your exalted warrior, where the back hand may reach, extend, find your long, strong back leg, and the top arm might reach overhead, finding your gaze as it suits you, finding your breathing, perhaps inviting a bit of lightness and flow. Where does the gaze feel just right to invite a bit of release in anything that may feel different than flow and lightness, or opposite even. And when you feel complete, coming back to a lunge, your back knee is welcome to come down, finding balance as it suits you. Arms might reach around, fingers might find each other, and perhaps you'll bow into what some call humble warrior. If you prefer the back knee up, that's an option. Remember, always options, always exploring, allowing the phases to guide us, finding your breathing. As you feel complete, releasing, I'm going to return to my first side and journey on into feeling space and allowing myself to explore in a crocodile pose. Coming prone now onto the belly. You may want to create some kind of pillow for your chin or your forehead, or maybe one side of your head. And depending on how my neck is feeling, sometimes it's my forearms that I stack. Sometimes it's a block that I use to press actually into those lovely pressure points, marma points above the eyebrows. You can even rock your head a little side to side if that feels comfortable for you. Sometimes the block is too hard. If you have a Nerf block, that might be preferred. You'll see. Exploring, finding breathing. And as you feel complete, we'll move into a bit of a locust variation. So again, the invitation is to feel the space and allow yourself to explore. I found that I'm really preferring to begin lifting just one foot and breaking the posture into half. So finding where your arms want to be, maybe alongside, maybe you prefer them under your head. Finding where your palms want to be, and perhaps beginning just with one foot and leg, and then the other. Creating a half locust or Shalambhasana. Repeating as you wish, resting as you like. Perhaps you'll begin to work with your head and heart a bit. Finding your breathing. Feeling the space as you wish, and allowing ourselves to explore. When you feel complete, taking rest as you wish. Maybe you'll move to a side lying Shavasana. And maybe rather taking a pit stop between postures, giving yourself a transition, a place to be before you feel ready to move on. And as we move into the end of our practice, the invitation is to come to a seat. And sometimes a seat feels a little better with a layer of blanket underneath us, and sometimes not. And sometimes a seat feels a little better with a couple of pillows or blocks. So let's see what works this morning. And as you find your seat, the invitation is to take a side body stretch. So one hand might find a block or the mat, and the other hand might come up and over. As best you are able. If it feels comfortable, can you invite an intention here for yourself? Maybe it's an intention for your day as you switch sides, as it feels comfortable for you. Maybe you want to move a bit side to side, waxing and waning with the moon, knowing that dear moon changes phases every night to night and a half or so. So why wouldn't we? Natural rhythms. coming center. Perhaps you'd like to undo your legs a bit. Maybe you need to change your props a bit. You're welcome to press the hands into something nearby or the floor. You might flex the feet, stretch the toes, find circles with the ankles as you wish. For our staff pose, Dandasana, finding your breathing. And finally, returning to your seated posture. And perhaps this time you'll take note of which foot was in front last time. And if not, no worries, we'll switch it and see if the other foot wants to be in front. My other foot doesn't want to be in front, so I'm going to return to this place and allow my body to sit the way it feels best right now in this moment. Perhaps taking your hands over your heart space as best you are able. If it feels comfortable, can you invite an intention here? Thank you, friends, for sharing my yoga homework with me. Be well.